We are fortunate enough as a city in Long Beach to have an amazing bike share staff and a program. For those of you who don't know what bike share is, it's a bike program, public uh, bikes for the public, sorry. And essentially you can rent them where wherever you see the hubs at. And again, we'll go over the different locations and some of the prices and stuff like that. But yeah, I just want to get into it and talk about how you can take advantage of this awesome program. So I guess I'll start with Nick and Chris, if you would like to introduce yourselves.
Yeah, I can go first. I'm Nick Russo. I work for Pedal Movement in a couple different capacities, but I've been with the company basically since and our role generally is that, the city of Long Beach is the owner of the program. They actually own the bicycles themselves and sort of manage, its activities and expansions and things like that. And then Pedal Movement, we're the private company that helps to expand the program and maintain the bike share program, build bikes, move things from one place to another, and we'll talk about some of the other things that we do at a later time in this presentation. But yeah, my role is basically to help facilitate that, on our end as our company goes about our everyday tasks and that sort of stuff. So really a supportive role, and Chris can talk about some more specifics about what he does and what our team does.
Sure. Well, I'm Chris Buckley. I'm the fleet manager with the bike share program. I directly oversee the staff here, and the in-house technicians with all of the maintenance that goes into the existing bike share fleet, and oversee the field technicians who, like Nick said, we move bikes around to where they need to be, change batteries, and just make sure as much of the fleet as possible is usable and rentable. We have a few other big projects going on here, but I think we'll touch on that a little later. I think that's it from me.
Cool. Well, Justin, thanks for inviting us to join you today. I think that I'm excited to just kind of talk about generally bike sharing. When I first moved to Long Beach, it was one of the first things that I noticed was a bunch of blue bikes around. And then the other thing that I noticed was just that there were tons of people around riding bikes all the time. And so I guess to kind of get us kicked off, like, what is bike share? Obviously it's one of those things that it's kind of ubiquitous at this point. Everyone's familiar with kind of generally how it works, but the way that we see it and that I see it is it's essentially the combination of bicycles and community. And so, the intersection between those two things is really what it's all about. It's all about creating accessible ways for the community to access transportation that is an alternative form of transportation to driving a car, which we're increasingly in California getting away from, but has long been an ingrained part of not only just Californian sort of transportation, but also just the US transportation in general. And so, obviously scooters are a relatively new addition, and we're specifically talking about bike share today, but there's a broader term called micromobility that kind of has to do with the same kinds of things that bike share is all about. So we broadly, like, the industry is changing in some exciting and new ways to incorporate different kinds of options for people to use and take and ride around. But that's in essence, that's the way that I think about it. How do you guys think about bike share?
For me personally, I've said this several times. I'm from a small farm town, so the whole idea of public transportation was kind of new to me. And then once I discovered the public bike transportation option, I was like, now you're really putting the power in the people's hands as far as choosing what kind of transportation they want. Because even in other big cities I've been in, there haven't been a bike share program where you can actually tour the city at your own speed and still be engaging with the public transportation system. Because I feel, some people aren't necessarily quick to hop on a bus or do the taxi, but a lot of folks across the world have been on a bike. So it's really that easy transition from, I went from walking in a hometown to riding my bike in a big city, and it really helps you make that transition without having to make your own purchase of a bike or really even having to have any knowledge of the city that you're in. Because generally speaking, and I can definitely speak for Long Beach, the accessibility is just off the charts as far as finding a bike, finding a hub, and just getting around and being able to find places that are bike friendly for parking. So that was probably the biggest thing whenever it came to bike share for me, was just the whole concept of kind of choosing how you want to travel.
Right, and I see it as like supplementary to the bigger forms of public transit. Yeah, you get your buses and trains for the bulk of the commute, but those aren't always delivering you to the most convenient locations. And if we can come in and provide a set of wheels to help you get those few extra blocks or maybe further, it's another way to support efficiency and time management for a lot of people. And it's just kind of fun, because who doesn't smile when they're on a bike? It's just kind of inherent. But yeah, it feels good to be a piece of that, parts of people's lives.
Yeah, I think so. You guys definitely touched on, a few different things that have to do with that community. And so, in that I hear connections, right? Networks, right? Those kinds of things. And that's really what it's all about, in general, is to me is bringing it back to that community aspect of things, which is like, it should be, and it is in some ways, an afterthought, just like other forms of transportation are, but it's also so important to the sort of everyday experience of so many people. And it's something that's simple, right? The bicycle as an idea is something that we've had and everybody is familiar with, from generally, from early age, throughout their life. It's the first thing that you kind of gives a lot of people that, that sense of like freedom or independence when they're a kid. And that's something you can carry with you, through your whole life. And so it's ordinary in the same way that it's kind of just like, it's novel because it's literally, as we said in the first slide, we're increasingly trying to get it to be everywhere. And so, we'll talk a little bit about some of that a little bit later on, but
And also, I just wanted to mention, Chris really hit on the idea of kind of fusing the bikes with with your transportation you're doing already. So somebody gets on the bus or on the train, then they take it to the main destination, which might be downtown. Now you can get on the bike, and it seems like pretty much from your front door to your destination, you can rely on public transportation, which is a beautiful thing about the city. But the bike really filled that gap between getting off of the train and maybe going that next, 4 or 5, 6 blocks. It's like, well, I could just walk it, but got these bikes here, they're affordable. And, if you're a bike lover, it's going to be hard to pass up an opportunity to ride up, take that convenience, take that extra step for even personal health. Everywhere you go, you can do it while riding your bike as well. So yeah, I definitely appreciate how it just kind of closes that gap between the bus and the train and the people, you know.
And you're literally untethered. Like a train is on rails, bike or buses have their designated routes and stuff. But having, an untethered set of wheels is supremely beneficial. And it's not a car that gets stuck in traffic. So you can, get places a little bit more quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
That's one thing I think that's always been, interesting to me, is that especially I think during COVID, when a lot of people were shying away from taking public transportation, as we all saw, bicycling became, even more important. And as we kind of continue to discover, and the CDC continues to kind of release new guidelines and show us essentially, or tell us essentially that, it's actually not super unsafe to be touching things. It can actually be a really kind of interesting way of making sure that you can get from from point A to point B without having to be around people. And so as much as it's about community, it's also about, creating your own little community, at least in this last year. So yeah, so I think that those are some really interesting things. So I'm going to move on to our next slide, which is like talking about reasons to ride. So you can see these three things here. Justin, do you want to explain a little bit about, what our thoughts are on this slide?
Yeah. So here's just different reasons to ride. I think for some people, they feel like they might need a reason to try to, experience the bikes. Other people, they just naturally hop on them for fun. So I just wanted to kind of give people a little bit of perspective on some of the benefits. One being, financially, it can really help you out saving money. If you get, especially with a membership, which we'll mention later, by getting a membership, you not only save money over the long haul, but if you ever been on the train and you had to do transfers, there's no transfer fee or anything like that, because a lot of times when you think, it only costs $1.25 or whatever to ride the bus or the train, then you realize you have to transfer the transfer fee, and if you forgot to get your transfer, then you're paying again. So it's just that can really accumulate, as well as things like saving on gas. I think that is something that, especially out here in Illinois, where I'm at right now, it's quite expensive for gas. So I've been seeing a lot more people on their bikes lately, and we don't have a bike share program. So a lot of people are stuck waiting to get to the bike shop that's probably going to be, delayed because everybody's looking for bikes right now. So just being able to have access to affordable transportation versus having to wait to buy a bike is crucial. It's also very important for the environment. We're going to hit on that a little bit too, but yeah, just with the environment, bikes use less resources. So obviously the metal amount that you use, the rubber that you use is just way less. We also have to talk about parking lots and how parking lots are not great for the environment. And when you look at a parking lot that might only hold 50 cars, and you can look at a couple hubs plopped on the side of the sidewalk that can open up so much business and so much potential for an area while not obstructing, the natural, or what natural beauty you can find in the city. You want to protect it, and bikes are much more aligned with that. Anything else that's going to be on wheels tend to be a little bit smoggy and just a little bit more inconvenient. So that's a big part of what we do as a company, is trying to stay green by doing what people naturally do, which is enjoying being outside and riding bikes. And then we also have engaging in community. And engaging in community is very key, because that's how you can help find yourself as well as strengthen the community. Whether it's local shopping, just getting out and riding your bike, finding new places, and also big bike rides. Hopefully, as we conquer COVID, we're going to be getting back to getting in our big bike groups and turning on our pretty lights and just, kind of showing the city the presence of bicycling. So those are kind of, whenever I see that, that's what I think about whenever I think of those three things, because those are how it can affect everybody, not just the person that's looking to get out and have fun on the weekend. But I mean, that's a daily commuter device. And as far as people that are trying to make a real impact on the environment as well as their community, bicycles and specifically bike share just seems to be the most effective way that I've seen.
Yeah. So let's talk about how it's economically beneficial as well, to try bike share. Um, I think you talked about the alternative kind of to different types of transportation, but the thing that I like the most, and the thing that's always been attractive to me, especially when I've lived in a place or been to a place where, you know, I didn't have my bike, or my own personal bike was like out of order. Um, our team will fix your bike for you, basically, right? I think that's a good way of thinking about it. And you can see, here, that we've got people whose job it is that, to work on bikes and make them work well for you. And as also we have an abundance of bicycles there. So every bike in some ways is one that is available to you, as a rider. Um, One other thing that we do, especially in the last year, is that, we've disinfected and cleaned your bike for you. So that's something you don't necessarily have to do. Now, we won't come out necessarily and wipe the seat off for you before the ride that you want to take. But it's definitely, we clean these bicycles on a regular basis. We apply special coatings to them so that they resist getting dirty a little bit more easily. And it's something that's you don't have to worry about making sure that the drivetrain is clean and all of that kind of stuff, because that's what our job is. It's as if we're fixing the bike every single day for you, your bike every single day for you. And we take a lot of pride in making sure that we do that really well. And so, you save on having to pay for repairs and new wheels and other things like that. And so it's economically friendly to you. But it's also economically friendly generally to our city, because, like Justin was saying, it cuts down on the need to have excessive amounts of, car parking and carbon offsets and other things like that, that you might need to do in order to make the environment a little bit more friendly in your area. So it really cuts down on the need for, like lots of new infrastructure. Bikes are relatively flexible in terms of their sustainability. And so, you can fix them a lot more easily and more quickly than a car or a bus or a train. Um, not to knock on trains, but I remember, like, a couple months ago, there was a driver in a car who, like, drove into or hit one of the blue line trains, the A line metro train, and it caused a bunch of delays. And we've had definitely some bicycles that have endured similar fates in some ways, but the thing is that it's easier for us to repair those bikes, and keep those bikes going. So it doesn't inconvenience quite as many people, from an economic impact. If you need to get to work and the bike that you're looking at is not looking so good, you can go to the next bike and grab that one, and it doesn't
Exactly.
cause a big dent in your day.
There's always another bike.
Exactly. And just to kind of hit on the talking about parking lots and kind of how they're not so eco-friendly, are like economically friendly with what they do with, you have to pay money to park in those, and bike parking is free. You park where you park. So it's very important that people factor that into when they're spending money. A lot of people forget that, you can get the cheapest car you can find, and you can put the cheapest gas in it, and you can get the cheapest insurance. But at the end of the day, you get that parking ticket, it's a car, just like a Lamborghini, just like any other fancy car. So bikes really have that advantage as far as whether you're parking it at your apartment complex or your house, or you can put it in your house, you can put it in your backyard. But yeah, with a car, if you don't have a driveway, every Tuesday or whatever, you're waking up at 7 a.m. to, move it around. So that's something that really moved me whenever I moved to Long Beach as well, was just that my cousin would just be like, I'm not moving the car today. I'm just taking the bike because I finally have a spot. And it's like, oh no, like that is actually a thing. Like people don't want to drive because they don't want to lose their spot. And so, yeah, a bike is never going to fight over a spot. It's always open to share.
I think another thing too is, this middle picture here. This is on First Street, downtown, right? This is a former site in many ways. This is one of the many valet events that Pedal Movement hosted over the last 5-6 years or so. So, maybe parking at a valet isn't necessarily something that we're used to doing in the last year. But look how close those bikes are to businesses, right? The convenience of being able to find a parking spot and not have to worry about, oh, I got to circle the block 4 times to find this thing, or, whatever it is. It's flexible. You can bring the bikes up, right there, right up to the sidewalk, and like Justin was saying, just park right there, do what you need to do, and walk away. So you're saving time, as well as money in that instance. And I guess we can also talk a little bit about the bikes themselves. You notice, in this picture here, that you've got this rack, right? The way that our bike share program is different from some other bike share programs is that the lock and the brain is on the bicycle itself. You don't need to have a special place, necessarily to drop these bikes off and park them. You can bring the bikes wherever, and park them wherever. There's a small fee, for parking a bike in a specific area that's not in a hub. We want to encourage people to try to still bring bikes back to these hub areas. This is at the convention center, this picture here. But it's flexible, right? So you can temporarily park this bike in this location. Don't park it at your house, or inside your house or your backyard, but park it in a public space. And if you don't end up using that bike again, somebody might come by, pick it up, and ride it. And so it's in that way, it's very similar to the scooters that we're all familiar with. But unlike the scooters, these bikes, we typically, we see people use it in a way where they're actually locking it to some kind of infrastructure. And most of that infrastructure is not blocking a sidewalk, which is obviously really important as well. So that's definitely one of the ways that I think that it can save a little bit of time and energy, because you don't have to worry about, I've ridden plenty of bike share programs across the country, and the world, where it's like you're looking at your phone, you're like, okay, where's the hub, where's this thing? It's much easier with this system to be able to just ride up to where you need to go, lock up your bike, and if you need to ride again, you can just unlock that bike and go on your way. So again, another kind of like time savings. I think another thing too that we could talk about is, we'll get into the actual payment plans in a couple minutes. But generally speaking, bike share is a good gateway to getting your own bike. You know, for people that already ride on a regular basis and have their own bike, there are some benefits that we can talk about too about using bike share. But for people that don't have a bike yet, it's a good way to get used to doing things, right? To kind of feel like, all right, yeah, like maybe I can do this. Maybe I don't want to commit to having a bike, you know, that I have to worry about maintaining. But I know so many people that have started off their life as a bike commuter or just regular bicyclist for fun or something like that, that got started on a shared bike. And then eventually they were like, I love this. I want to ride a bike more. And I want to like get into bikes and I want to get something that like fits me and feels more comfortable and that sort of stuff, and then they end up buying their own bike. So it's a good way to save initially on making that big purchase or, you know, medium purchase or whatever it is. And so you can kind of test it out. It's a good way to sort of feel out whether it's the right thing for you to do.
They're very beginner friendly too. If you're a little insecure about you get a little bit of the wobbles, they have like a little guidance spring there. The weight is like very good for like you're not going to be flying and burning out of a parking lot when by barely pedaling. There's plenty of gears on it, so you have option. So yeah, yeah, they are very ideal for the person that is going to make that leap to making their own purchase. And I've seen it plenty of times where, somebody just wanted to rent the bike for a while. And even at our shop at the Hub in downtown Long Beach, where we, rent out different kinds of bikes, you'll see somebody rent a bike and they'll come back a day later and they're like, I think I want to buy a bike, and they just have this look of, like the first time you see somebody like go on a roller coaster, ride a motorcycle, it's like, oh, they're different forever now. Like they've experienced something great. So yeah, it's that is definitely a big part of the economics is just trying it before you buy it. If you really want to use that bike and you don't want it stuck in the garage, that's a great way is to try it first. And there's people like me that already had a bike, but I had skinny road tires on it. And if anybody's familiar with how the streets can be, it's nice to have some really thick reinforced tires that are on those rental bikes. So I've actually saved money by not riding my bike so much and getting flats. So it kind of works in several ways.
Yeah. And one big way I think that we all know is a problem here in Long Beach as bike owners in general is one big way that a bike share program can be very economically friendly to you is that if you go out somewhere and you park your personal bike somewhere and somebody decides that they like that bike, it's very attractive and easy for them to steal your personal bike. And we all know it happens frequently enough, unfortunately. And so it's not very attractive for people to steal these bikes. It happens every now and then, but we, luckily we're able to track them down, using the bike's technology. But you are not out a bike if you ride your bike to that bar and leave it locked up overnight. It'll either still be there in the morning or it's still sitting in your house because you took bike share there, so you don't have to worry about filing an insurance claim or buying a new bike or whatever it is that you need to do. And also dealing with the feelings of getting your bike stolen. It's never a good feeling. Do we want to move on to the next slide, yeah. So Chris, I was hoping you could talk a little bit about how we've been able to create a more environmentally friendly program over the last couple of years. We talked a little bit about some of those environmental impacts, but tell us more about that experience for you.
Sure. So perhaps like our biggest project right now, the city of Long Beach decided to buy these used bikes from New Orleans, and just that opportunity gave these bikes a second life. If we didn't take them, they probably would have ended up in a landfill or just like unused, and they still have plenty of life left in them. And yeah, we decided to do that undertaking, and yeah, kind of at a loss for words right now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, and the city acquired hundreds of these bicycles at a steep discount compared to what buying a new bike would be. So it's partially an environmental decision to be able to kind of like rescue these bikes from going to a landfill, but in a lot of ways, it's also an economical decision, right? The city wanted to expand the program, and we did too. So we came together with a plan to make that happen, and made sure that we had plenty of storage solutions. You can see here, there's all these piles of bikes here, and we really took to it with the fine tooth comb and made sure that all these bikes were in good working order. And so far we've nearly completely refurbished this initial batch of 500
close to 500, yeah.
And we've been slowly kind of deploying them out into the field. We've got roughly 200 brand new ones. And so right now, depending on the day, we've got roughly 700 to 750 bikes. And this is the 5th year that the program has been in operation. The anniversary was in March of 2021. It initially kicked off in March 2016. And the program launched with, I think, 10 hubs and about 100 bikes. And so, it's increased slowly over the years. When we started operating the program in 2017, late 2017, there were about 400 bikes. In late 2018,
19,
we expanded the program to the whole of the city, with the addition of some refurbished bikes from another program. And then this past year, we've undertaken this really big project, and we can safely say we're planning on continuing to expand this program because we see a lot of success in it, and we also see a lot of potential for it to continue to grow. And I'll show a sort of a screenshot of the system map in a little while, so we can get a sense of how many bikes are out there and where they're located and those kinds of things. But I think, Justin, you were talking. Go ahead, Chris.
I was gonna say, you touched on this, but like every time we expand to new hubs with more bikes, the more bikes we have out, the higher the ridership goes. And with that positive reinforcement, it just encourages us to keep going and keeping the bikes out. And the more people that see them and see them being used, is encouraging for them. And this all cycles back into that cycling lifestyle.
Yeah,
Justin. It really does make the city look beautiful too. Like, because I'm like, when you go into a place that's like mostly big buildings and concrete, and then you just see like these like nice flowing blue bikes waiting there to be rented, or you see people riding around on them at the beach, and you're just like, wow, is somebody filming a commercial, or is this like, this is just what those can do for you? That's just what a bike share program can do for you. And also just to touch on the environment as far as like keeping it safe for people. I think you had a picture earlier of like the cleaning and sanitizing process. So yeah, just to let folks know that is something that's always taking place. And so it's not just environmentally friendly in the sense that it's decreasing pollution and decreasing waste, but also keeping your environment safe of, you know, viruses and disease, and anything that sits outside for too long needs to be cleaned. And a lot of people don't necessarily think of it that way. So these bikes are going to be often cleaner than the sidewalk right in front of your house. So just always be comfortable with that. When you're sitting on the porch, think, you know, I could be sitting on a bike right now.
I was just going to say one kind of last thing that, you know, to kind of go back to the economically friendly conversation that you talked about, is that, you know, uh, the other aspect of the environmental conversation here is really the footprint, Justin, that this, you know, that these bikes take up. You know, you can see in this slide here, this van, right, is pretty large. This is the van that we use to move bikes around, but it's just about as large, this one vehicle, as this entire group of bikes is. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bikes parked there. And so, you know, in that space where there are, you know, this many bikes, you know, 6 bikes, the actual physical footprint is really small. So, you know, it creates a situation where literally, like, if we're talking about environmental, we're talking about, like, there's not much need for concrete to hold these bikes in one place. And so, you know, groundwater and like permeability of our surface, you know, and that sort of stuff, it also creates an environment where it's less detrimental to, you know, to our overall kind of built environment in many ways too. There's less need for concrete for these bikes to take up space, because they're just much smaller vehicles and more nimble, and that sort of thing. So yeah, that was just one point that I think kind of touches on both of those things. Let's talk about community a little bit, and engaging with the city a little bit. Justin, did you want to introduce
Yeah.
this topic?
Yeah, so I'm not sure how many folks out there have gotten a chance to join any of the local rides that are in Long Beach, but any given time when you're downtown or you're on 4th Street or pretty much anywhere, you will see a mountain of people ride by, whether they're kids fresh out of school and needing to like burn off the energy, or it's a group of seniors that are still out there just riding hard, and everybody in between. And that is what the bike community is about. And a big way to get started is to find other people that might not necessarily be as experienced with bikes, or in my case, like I might be a little bit more experienced in bikes than my friends, but I get a blue bike and I'm right there with them. And you can have these experiences as a, you know, as a group of friends. You run into other people that are renting bikes. And so it's not just necessarily like the looking for an organized bike ride. It's literally just once you get on those 2 wheels, you're going to run into other people, and it's a natural occurrence. And that's why Long Beach is special that way, because by fostering these kind of programs, you really get a sense that they want that community to exist. So yeah, bike share is definitely pushed that the agenda of keeping people together and keeping people active together. So yeah, the bike rides are great. The organized ones, the Moonlight Mash, that's a really big ride that our company has helped organize, you know, and so we're moving forward with the bike culture in Long Beach, but with the bike share, it makes it more permanent, and it makes more of a statement rather than just, oh, I saw some people out on bikes. It's like those were the city's bikes. Those were bikes that they're making sure that their citizens are taken care of. Both, you know, because for me, the mental health that I get from riding a bike is pretty hard to put into numbers. So the fact that these bikes are sitting there giving you the ability to communicate with others, to join with others, or if you just want to go on a solo ride, that's a great way to enjoy the community too and build community. Because before you can join a community, you really want to be comfortable and putting yourself out there. And a bike is just a really easy way to say, hey, I'm one of you, you know? Before
Yeah.
you even say words, they see you on a bike and they're like, okay, let's kick it.
It's another kind of universal language in some ways.
Exactly.
When what are they, the corny phrase, it's like, the smile is the only universal language. Like a bike in some ways is a universal language. You've got at least one thing in common with that person that you also see on a bike.
Exactly.
And I think like one thing that I always tell people in general and like to talk about is that the best way if to see places, especially a city, is on a bike. On foot is also great too. That's another kind of like tempo thing. But if you're driving in a city, you know, you're gonna at least on this street, right? If you're gonna blast past these great murals that are on this, building here, you're gonna ride past that coffee shop, at 25, 30 miles an hour, that is like a little tiny hole in the wall that you would have never seen, like on Long Beach and Third Street, recreational coffee is this little tiny shop that you wouldn't necessarily notice, if you were driving by it, but biking by, walking by, there's a much higher chance that you're able to kind of engage really fully and deeply with the community that you're in. And so that's why, bike share in combination with, as you can see here, the Broadway bike lanes, are a really good combination, because it creates an environment where not only is there accessible, safe infrastructure for people to be riding to these businesses and stores and other kinds of things that are around them, but the other part of the infrastructure is the actual bicycle itself, which, the two of those things in common with one another really forces people to kind of engage with their city on a much different level. And so I think that's one thing that I love about riding is like, I I will just sometimes be bored and need to get, obviously these days, need to get out of the house. And I just hop on a bike and I don't even really have a plan about where I might be going. I have my typical route, sure, but I also just kind of know, like, all right, well, I'm going to find something interesting to look at, while I'm on my ride. And it forces you to kind of just like slow down and take things in. You notice change a lot more in,
Yes,
in a city when you're on a bike.
for
You,
real.
you don't really see it as much when you're screaming by it at 30 miles an hour. Uh,
Yeah.
so,
I really
uh,
enjoy the placement of the hubs as well. I've told people, like, if you go onto the Bikeshare app, which we'll mention later, you can, the same way with you do with Google Maps, you can make a mental, almost like if you're just wanting to do a coffee crawl. There's some people that put together a coffee crawl, and a lot of them were either walking or they had their own bikes, and a few of them were getting on the bike share bikes, and are like, oh man, half the places you've picked on here are literally right next to a hub. So I'll see you
yeah,
guys there. Like, you guys are gonna walk all the way down 4th Street and try to hit up every coffee spot. And it's like, then there will be a couple that are 2 or 3 city blocks, and it's like, now they're getting on the bus. I'm already down there in line, and if everybody's doing the same thing, then obviously you want to be the first in line. So yeah, it was just little things like that that Long Beach does, and the bikes just kind of flow right with it. It's almost like they were thinking, hey, bikes are the easiest way to get around a beautiful city. And I really like what you were saying about missing those things that you drive past every day. Me, for example, I didn't know there was an amazing Mexican restaurant right around the corner, like literally right around the corner from where I was staying. But because my mindset was, get on the bus, get on the 61 from North Side and take it all the way down. But now that there's like bike share up there, you can actually ride around these little towns these little neighborhoods that feel like little towns, have their own vibe, and you really get to soak it in. And yeah, I suggest that people really get a chance to just experience that, because the city expresses itself in so many ways and you really don't get to feel it. Like you said, Nick, when you're in a car and you're just zooming by and you didn't hear, like, there's music, literally people playing music at the restaurants to bring you in, and the smells, I drive past a Thai place. I'm not gonna catch the scent, but when you ride past, might hit a Yui and hop off your bike and get a nice meal. And the bike share bikes are perfect because they have that really big basket in the front, and it's a protected basket. So yeah, a lot of times I would even do a little grocery shopping and stuff, and it really makes for the perfect impromptu stop vehicle, because when you're in a car, you'll see a really awesome looking grocery store or restaurant, and you're already 3 lights past it, and
Yeah,
you're like, okay, now I need to find Google and try to remember the name of it and see if I can save it. And it's like, when you're on a bike, I can just stop and go and get a menu. Like,
right.
I can go pick up a card because I'm right here already.
I think another thing too that you said about Google Maps that's useful to know is that Google Maps actually has, not only does it have bicycling directions that you can use to get around from place to place, but our bike share program feeds in to Google Maps, and so there's actually all of the hubs that are available, on the app, which we'll show in a second. You can actually view them on Google Maps, and so you could basically, if you wanted to, you could string together a route and be like, okay, is there a bike share hub nearby? Yes, and then you could basically just navigate from bike share hub to bike share hub, and that way it kind of gives you a sense of where the infrastructure is. But I'll go back also to promoting the fact that these bikes are flexible. You can park them, wherever, and that's one thing that with the addition of more bikes, we're working with the city to kind of find where the gaps in the network are, where there are places that don't necessarily have bikes available on a regular basis, bike share bikes available on a regular basis. And we're going to be creating flexible places for people to park bikes and find bikes on a regular basis that are in communities, right? That are not just like at the major intersections where things are. We want to make the sort of saturation of bicycles available to people where they need them, and so that's going to be a big effort. And that's another way to kind of see your community is like, oh yeah, I might have to walk a block or two to find this bike that's like not at this hub that I'm used to going to, but it's way closer to me, and I never go down that street.
Right.
And I'll go check that one out.
And
And then might
not
discover.
to hold up on this one too much longer, but yeah, just, you hit on the idea of being in communities, being in neighborhoods, and not just the major intersections. So the inclusivity of bicycling is one of the major reasons why bike share is key, because it is really something that you can have in every single type of neighborhood, whether it's more just outside of an industrial area and they're factory workers that don't mind hopping on a trail and taking a ride, or right by a school, right by a lot of restaurant areas. It fits into every different neighborhood, every different culture. And that's why it's so important to have that for our city, because it opens up so much opportunity for folks.
Yeah. So I think by now people are probably wondering how to sign up for this program. So we can go. I think I might share my screen in a couple minutes. We're getting close to the end of our session here, but there's two very easy ways to sign up. You can go to the website longbeachbikeshare.com, and if you just search Long Beach Bike Share, you'll find it easily that way. Or there's an app called Social Bicycles that's available for Android and iPhones. And both of those will bring you to the same place. You just need to make sure in the app that you choose Long Beach Bike Share. There are some kind of somewhat local other bike share programs that are different from Long Beach. But then you have the option to choose what plan works for you. And you can see the way it's delineated on the website here is pay as you go and prepaid is for, is for visitors. And then the monthly and annual plans are for locals. It doesn't necessarily have to be that way, but some people find some flexibility with it one way or another. And just to kind of broadly talk about it, so the hourly rate to rent a bike is $7 per hour. It's about 12 cents per minute is one other way of thinking about it. And that's for these light blue plans, the pay as you go and the prepaid plans. And so you're literally just paying for time to ride. So if you know you're only going to ride for 2 hours ever, you only have to pay $14 plus tax, to access that bike. If you want to have some flexibility and you think you might ride more than 2 hours, but you're not really sure, and it's really going to just be like a one-time thing, or maybe once every few months or something like that, you could always put in that initial $7, hour-long ride, and then it basically, the system will charge you for however much time you ride. So if you ride for an hour and 23 minutes, you'll get charged for 1 hour, so that's $7, and then 23 minutes, which is, about a quarter, a little bit more than a quarter of an hour, a little bit less than, so it's going to roughly be about $10, right, for that particular trip. If you put that into perspective, for even not to dissuade you from renting bikes at our Go Active hub or other, bike rental facilities throughout the city, the average hourly rate for most bikes to rent, in Long Beach is about $8 at the very, very minimum for like a basic bike per hour. And so it's already cheaper to be riding Long Beach bike share bikes. And it's more flexible. You don't have to worry about, oh, are they even open right now? Do I need to arrange this ahead of time? Do I need to talk to anybody? You can manage that all yourself.
And
So
another addition to that is compare that to an Uber or a Lyft ride for the same distance. Like, it's at least like $10 to get in the car going anywhere, pretty much.
right.
Just frame of reference.
Yeah. And I think so. The other plans here, these dark blue monthly and annual plans that are, for locals, that's for people who, like we were talking about before, might want to regularly ride, but they don't want to own their own bike. And so the way that this works is you pay each month, or in the case of an annual plan, once a year, you pay a subscription fee to the service, just like Netflix or whatever. And what you get access to for each of these plans is you get 90 minutes of free riding time each day. So you have an hour and a half every single calendar day, right? Whether it's a weekend or a weekday, whether it's 1 a.m. or 1 p.m., you can ride for an hour and a half. As soon as you go over that hour and a half, you start to pay that 12 cents a minute or $7 an hour rate for that particular day. So, if you ride for 2 hours, in a particular day, and you're on the monthly plan, if you ride for 2 hours every single day, you're going to pay about $3.50, $4 or so per day to ride. But normally, if you were on a prepaid plan, you'd be paying $14 per day, which is the cost of a monthly subscription, pretty much. So it's definitely an incentive for people who are going to be riding regularly to subscribe to that kind of a plan. There is also a discounted student membership that's available for students that have a .edu email address. And we are working on ways to create more accessible plans for people that, especially after this year, might be finding it hard to get around, on any kind of transportation, and might need something. So we're working with the city to create opportunities for people who might not be able to afford these rates. And that's something that I think is really powerful that the city can do, because this is a city, run program. So that's how to sign up. And then just where you can ride. So the blue area here this is Long Beach city limits, right? So anywhere within Long Beach, and actually Signal Hill too is covered as well, which is a nice little benefit. And then each of these little green dots here, this is a live map of about, maybe an hour and a half or 2 hours ago. All these green dots are where there are bikes parked ready for you to ride. All of the blue dots are individual bikes that are, parked outside of a hub somewhere, that are available to people to just pick up. Maybe this one's in front of somebody's house or a business or something like that. But as you can see, yeah, there's some gaps here. We really, over the first 3 or 4 years of the program's existence, essentially, PCH and South, which is right here, PCH is right up here. That was really the only part of the program area, was like this kind of general southern section. So just in the last 2 years did we expand all the way through the port, all through West Long Beach, all through North Long Beach, and then even up over here into this corner. There were a couple of hubs up here by Cal State, but yeah, so it's been a slow expansion, but we're definitely at a point now where you've got citywide coverage, and we're working as we put more bikes out into the city, and Chris's team works really hard to build more of those bikes, to site them in places where it's convenient for people. And so, you're going to see more green dots coming soon to the system map. So this is what the map looks like right now. It might look different tomorrow, and it's going to continue to look more green as time goes on, as we add more hubs to the system.
Yeah, that map is definitely a lifesaver though, because if you are ever just randomly walking, and there will be times where maybe you go out for the night, and whenever you're walking back from a friend's house, from the bar or whatever, and you're not necessarily near a hub, but you do see that somebody parked a bike out somewhere, it always comes in clutch to just snack that thing up and start riding, and then you're like, wow, this night's gonna end up way better than I thought. Because there are times where, when them buses stop running and you're walking, there is nothing better than getting home, and probably faster than you would have even been on the bus. Because if you subtract the stops, it's like, all right, this was way better of an option. And just the fact that it's expanded so far up the blue line is really cool too, because it's really going to start helping people, get off the train at, up by Compton and hop on, Orange, and just ride down that, or get on the bike trail. And there's just a lot of options that I see just from how far it's expanded. Like, you get so many more people riding. And yeah, like I said, those follow those blue dots. That's very key, because yeah, and you can actually put your bike on hold for a bit too. So I've done that as well, where I've just ran into the store and put it on hold, come back out. It's nice to know that, your bike's gonna be nice and safe. It comes with a U-lock, which is the more effective kinds of locks. So you don't just get a little stringy, piece of cloth that it looks like. You get a hardy, thick lock that's gonna, and you can lock it up to several different things. Don't lock it up to fences and stuff that can be snipped around. But, obviously if you find, a sign, or ideally a hub, you lock it up there, and yeah, it can make your night go a lot smoother. And just the fact that it's getting into more and more corners of Long Beach is really exciting. It's really, like I said earlier, it's just inclusive, because a lot of folks don't really get those opportunities usually to have a bike hub right outside of your school, right outside of your church, stuff like that. It's really helps people get around.
Cool. Okay, so once again, thanks for everybody for joining us. Let's see. If you do want to sign up for the program, you can go to longbeachbikeshare.com. And if you have any questions about how the program works, if there's stuff that we weren't able to answer for you today, you can always call the customer service department. The phone number is listed on the website there. I'm not going to read it now. Or you can send an email to us and you know, talk to us on social media and those other channels like
social
that.
media for sure, and like and subscribe to YouTube, and check out all of our videos. I've always wanted to say that, like and subscribe, like I'm all YouTubers.
Hit that like button,
yeah.
everybody.
So yeah,
smash that like button. Cool.
Smash that like button, exactly.